Greetings, magical souls. If you're new here, my name's Em. I'm an animal communicator and lover of dragons and all things magical, actually. I've come on today to share a little bit of a personal story for anybody that has cats of their own. Before I start with this video, I am going to put in a disclaimer because I'm not a vet and I am sharing my own experience here. I feel like this is really important to share because I feel like it could help a lot of cats out there. I am sharing my story. I am sharing things that I have found on the internet, and I am sharing what works for me and what I have been guided to do with my own cats. And so recently, about a month ago now, I had an incident with my cat, Jake. The one Sunday, Jake does not like to use the cat box. He much prefers to go outside, but he uses it if he has to in the night. And so it was during the day, the door was open. And what I noticed was he kept running to the cat box like every sort of hour or so and producing these really, really, really tiny little amounts of urine. So I tuned in, and I myself have had cystitis once or twice in my life. And for any of you that haven't, what sometimes happens with cystitis is you constantly feel like your bladder's full, but it's actually not. So when I tuned in, it was like he kept running to the cat box to empty his full bladder, only the bladder wasn't full. I, of course, thought, okay, well, what else could this be? You know, is there anything else that I need to be aware of? So I tuned into some of my favorite animal channels like Dr. Andrew Jones and Dr. Judy and Dr. Katie. And I found out that there is something that is actually quite prevalent, and 90% of these instances happen in male cats. And the term they have for this is FIC, which is feline idiopathic cystitis. Now, for anybody out there who's not familiar with that term idiopathic, all it means is the medical system give this word idiopathic to anything that they can't work out what the root cause is. So idiopathic just means that they don't know the cause. Feline obviously is cats. Cystitis is, I've just explained what cystitis is. And cystitis can, from what I understand, be either an infection in the bladder, so you got like a little bug or something, or it's actually just the bladder wall and the bladder lining that becomes inflamed. So it can be either of those. But the problem is that you can also, with cats, if they are presenting with this kind of issue, it can also be like a blockage where they're trying to wee and they can't. And if little bits of urine are coming out, it can indicate that there are stones, like what we would have kidney stones. They call them bladder crystals in cats. And of course, all of these things are treatable and manageable. But if you have this blockage, it's actually, it can be fatal. The cat can die. So my one thing was, okay, he's producing very small amounts of urine, so he's not blocked. But obviously, if the cat keeps running to the cat box and nothing's coming out, that's like an emergency. And so after I don't know how many videos, I determined that it's okay to take Jake to the vet on Monday morning. So I phone the vet, I get him in, put him in the carrier, take him down to the vet. They say at least he's producing small amounts of urine, but they'll let me know. They keep him the whole day. They pump him full of fluids. They give him an anti-inflammatory, and they work out that it isn't a blockage, but they want to get him to pass urine so that they can study a urine sample. And the long and short of it is that he doesn't do this all day. I fetch him at 5:00. Jake is a very, very highly stressed cat. And when I say that he's very relaxed in our own home, he's very relaxed with us. But even if I have somebody delivering something to the door and I've got to open the door and sign for it, and he hears somebody's voice that is not of our family, he does not like it. He hides under the bed. He gets completely freaked out. So when we go to the vet, it's not an ideal situation for him. And so the vet said to me, well, he's not producing urine. I don't know what to do. It might be because he's stressed. Maybe let him come home. He can produce a urine sample. You can drop it off tomorrow. Anyway, on the way home, lo and behold, he, as I am removing him from the car, he lets his bladder go and he produces this massive monumental wee, which is really good news. So apart from the fact that it's everywhere, I am really excited about this because this is very good news. And so really what we ended up with is I dropped the sample off. It was very, very concentrated. They had to do something with it to dilute it. And the next morning they phoned me and said they can't pick up any sign of infection. It is full of red blood cells, which there's blood in the urine. But what they're going to do is they're just going to give them an antibiotic. So what happens is that in the coming days, we carry on with the antibiotic. I don't want to give him an anti-inflammatory long term. So after 4 days, I stop the anti-inflammatory. And by now, if the antibiotic's working or whatever, I should be seeing some signs of improvement. Now, up until now, Jake has been, he's really good. I say to him, please, can you show me your wheeze? And every morning since then, and we're now going into 4 weeks, he goes to the cat box every morning and shows me his wee, whether he's got a little one or a big one. So I can see whether there's blood in it. I can make sure what's going on, because at the moment I'm monitoring this very, very closely because I can't get the answers that I need from the vet. And so essentially what really happened is I stopped the anti-inflammatory. We were carrying on with the antibiotic. By now we're 5 or 6 days into the antibiotic. And all of a sudden he's producing these very small wheeze again. So I tune in and I sit there and I go, well, then obviously the anti-inflammatory is actually having more of an effect on him than the antibiotic, which they told me there wasn't an infection. So I don't even know why we've got him on an antibiotic, to be honest. It's like just cover your bases. So we'll just do an antibiotic. But antibiotics are actually not good for the body, not unless something's really, really about to kill you. I thought, wow, well, what does this tell me? So this tells me that not necessarily infection, but that there is inflammation, so that the wall of the bladder is inflamed. There's something going on with the bladder wall. So what I do is I leave him for the rest of the day, because now we're 2 or 3 days off the anti-inflammatories. I know from all these videos that I've watched that the biggest thing is making sure that they get water in them, making sure that you get them off dry food, they need wet food, and managing stress. That's according to all these sort of more holistic vets that I follow, because they really don't know what the cause is of this. However, when I went into a couple more videos, there were a few vets suggesting that our early spaying and neutering of animals is causing a lot of issues. And this makes sense to me. What some of the vets were actually alluding to is we should really only be spaying our female animals after their first season, because by then their reproductive organs and their bodies have matured. What we need to understand is hormones govern everything. Hormones in the body switch everything off and on, and hormones allow for the development of all the tissues and everything in the body. So what happens is when we are spaying and neutering earlier, I mean, this really resonates with me, is that when they take out all those hormones and everything, the little tubes to the kidneys, to the bladder, the urethra, all these, and even the linings of some of the organs are not actually developing properly, because we're essentially taking out the hormones that control all the development of the physical body. And so it becomes a real problem, of course, with male cats, because if you don't know this about male cats, is that when they're not neutered, they spray. They like to mark their territory, and it stinks. It really does. But I'm going, my lack of willingness to try and find a way to work with this cannot be to the detriment of the cat that I would like in my life. And so, you know, I'm sure that there are ways around this, but of course, the easiest answer to now is, like with most medical things, is like it's quick and easy, and it's just you want to get it sorted out and you want to crack on. We're not listening to the body, and we're not listening to what's going on with the body, and we don't realize the implications of what we're actually doing. Obviously, when you've got trap, neuter, return programs and whatever, there are instances. I am not saying that we have got to leave all animals to have a first season or leave cats till 9 months, male cats till 9 months old before they're neutered, because apparently that's when their bodies kind of are matured. But what I am saying is that in cases like trap, neuter, return, where you have got a feral colony of cats and it's just growing, obviously then if those cats are living on the street and that, I mean, then we've got to try and do something, because otherwise we just have even more animals on the streets. And it is what it is. And I don't know what the answer is, but what I'm getting at is that I don't want people coming back to me on this video and going, yeah, but we must neuter and spay, otherwise we haven't, we have too many animals on the streets. I fully understand that. And I think in those cases, trap, neuter, return, trap, spay, return is the only way to actually handle it where we are in our current circumstances. But for the cats in our homes, this is really, really important, because I didn't know about this condition until Jake had this incident on Sunday 4 weeks ago. It's kind of just swept under the rug. But when you actually go down this rabbit hole, you realize how common it is. And that's the frightening thing, is they give it this label of idiopathic. But if it's that common in our animals, I think it causes, this is what my whole role is here on this planet, is to have us seeing our animals differently and to actually look at what we are doing to them that maybe is not really good for them. Why are we still spaying and neutering early if it's not a trap, neuter, return situation? Why are we still doing this? And I'm seeing it more and more frequently in the animals that I see and the people that I speak to, where they have got dogs that have been spayed too earlier, and those dogs are now incontinent. The female dogs seem to have this incontinence that is being caused from early spaying. And so the question I really just pose is, what are we really doing to our animals? And are these practices maybe a little bit outdated? Is it time to think about doing something different? And maybe if we are responsible, and whether you're buying from a breeder, as much as I don't do that, I adopt animals that need homes, but whatever, I'm not here to judge anybody. But if you're buying from a breeder, or if you're getting from an SPCA or some kind of rescue or whatever, maybe it's worthwhile leaving the animal for as long as they can, as long as it is actually possible, before neutering and spaying. And so I think this is just food for thought. And as I said at the beginning, I'm not a vet. I'm sharing my own experience. I'm just voicing thoughts. I am sharing things out there with the collective. So I don't expect anybody to come after me. I'm not here giving veterinary advice. But I do want to share the story, because I believe if we can share these things, we can actually help our animals, because a lot of us are now in the situation where we have these animals that have been neutered or spayed very young. And what do we do about that? So this brings me to the next part of my story. So when I spoke to the vet, I said to them, well, what do you suggest I do? Because the antibiotics they haven't made any difference, but I can tell the anti-inflammatories making a difference. And their answer was, well, you need to come in and put him on urinary food. We've got Hills here. He'll do well on this diet. It can be wet if he prefers wet, but the dry one's very good too. Now, this sounds an alarm bell for me, because everything that I have read on this condition is to get the cats off the dry food. And for anybody out there who's had a lot of cats in their world, we all know that a lot of the times they end up with kidney failure, renal failure. There's something around the water. Cats are actually, from all the diving down this rabbit hole that I've done in the past couple of weeks, it seems like they actually don't have a thirst instinct in them. Because they're used to running and hunting, and then they would consume the mice or the bird or whatever it is. They are used to getting a lot of their water from the animal that they are consuming, but they don't actually drink like dogs do. They don't actually have this sort of thirst instinct, or I don't know what the right word for is, or this drive, or this, they don't seem to drink as much as other animals that we have in our homes. And I've noticed this with my own cats. And, it was interesting because I've seen people saying water fountains are good. I've seen people going, don't put your water bowl near your cat's food bowl. They don't like it, but all cats are unique. And I have had some cats that will drink absolutely next to the water bowl. But I've noticed that Jake and Pixie, I've got a water bowl in my bathroom as well. And they will leave their food, they will come around and they will drink out the water bowl in the bathroom. They, for some reason, don't like drinking out the water bowl next to the food. But then there are days where they're both drinking out the water bowl next to the food. So I have various water bowls all over the house in order to just make sure that my cats get adequate intake of water. But what I want to share with you is this, is that when these cats are eating these animals, they play with their prey, as you know, and then they'll kill it and then they'll eat it. But their animals that they're eating are generally warm. And this is what I find fascinating. This whole thing unfolded for me, and that's why I'm sharing the story. 2 weeks after this all unfolded, we had a very, very, very cold snap here in Auckland, where it went to I think 1 degree one night, and in certain areas it was frozen. It is the coldest I have experienced since moving here 10 years ago. And it was so interesting for me because I noticed with both of my cats, and particularly because I was trying to make sure that Jake was drinking water, that I noticed with both of them that they were going near the water bowl and then almost like jerking away from it after one little lick. And suddenly I thought, all of a sudden, what just dropped in for me was, wow, the water's too cold. Because obviously we were now, it was much colder than it ever had been here. And so I tuned in a little bit, and it was like, yeah, make the water tepid or lukewarm. So I got out of the bed, I emptied all the water bowls around the house. I put the bowl down back, and it was like sort of just tepid or lukewarm. And both of the cats were in there drinking. And I was like, oh my word. Now, what had actually happened is, after I couldn't get the answers that I needed from the vet, I went and got something homeopathic, and I treated Jake for an acute condition, which means that he had his medicine, this medicine every 5 to 15 minutes for 8 doses. So for 2 hours, I just pumped this into him sort of every 5-10 minutes. And then we were on 2 to 3 times a day, and we are now entering our 3rd week. And Jake has improved significantly. But the other thing is that my cats are on a high quality dry kibble with they have 1 meal a day that is wet, but the dry kibble has dehydrated protein in it. So it's a high quality kibble. It costs quite a lot of money, because I've tried to introduce these two to raw and they don't want it. So what was very interesting is one of the vets that I came across said, when, in his opinion, you are even the worst quality wet food is better to give your cat than a very high quality dry food, because cats do not consume enough moisture and they always end up with these kidney and urinary issues. And so I really sat there and I was thinking about that, and I thought, okay, well, I now need to increase their wet food intake. So that's what I did. Started getting them on more wet food a day and trying to decrease the kibble. The kibble, I think, is a little bit like our fast food. I think it's like crack, because they're addicted to it. They love it. They're addicted to it. But anyway, I was just thinking about what this vet said, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to start with some stuff and whatever I can lay my hands on. And then I bought them some really high quality wet food, which of course also turning their noses up at, because I think that's like salad for them instead of like chocolate, whatever it is. But there's something in between that I've gotten them on, and I'm slowly trying to transition them to more of a high protein. If I can't get them on raw, then this is my next best thing, but I'm still going to try and transition them to raw. But it's interesting, because it's like there's ups and downs to both things, because you've got to also be really careful when they're eating raw, because if you leave the food out and you're in the middle of a heat wave, and that the food can actually go off. When cats are hunting, they're eating their prey as soon as they've killed it. They don't leave it to rot. I mean, unless you're a leopard, you leave your meat to rot in the tree. But but I think maybe, in the wild it works differently. Maybe our homes are full of different bacteria and things like that. I don't have all the answers, but there's sort of pros and cons to both of these things. You've just got to be careful when you're feeding them with raw food, that it doesn't go off and that kind of thing. So there's always this delicate balance of things. So really what I've been doing now is I've been leaving the kibble out for them overnight if they want to have a nibble, and during the day they're getting their wet food. And he's been on his homeopathic medicine. And what I've also done is I've gotten them a water fountain, which they were horrified at for 2 weeks. And now they've actually started to drink from the water fountain. The water fountain's also in the bathroom. But what I've been doing is also adding tepid water to the water fountain, and they've been drinking from the water fountain. The other thing that I've been doing is I've got these little packets of food. And on the mornings that were really, really cold, I noticed that they wouldn't eat their wet food. And then they were asking for dry food. So what I was doing is I was just putting their wet food in like a little basin of hot water, just for 5 minutes, just to take that cold edge off. Bingo, eating the wet food. So the reason I'm sharing these things with you is, if you have cats in your life, if they're just on dry food, it might be time to look at things. If you don't have a cat box in the home, you may not even know that your cat's got this kind of thing going on with it, because if it just uses a toilet outside and is urinating outside, you don't actually ever see whether there's blood in the urine, whether they've got something like a cystitis where they're trying to urinate very frequently. And it sounds like, from all the research I've done, that a lot of cats actually, the male cats, die from these blockages. And so I did want to share this, because I feel that if we can get our cats eating more wet food, that automatically increases their intake of water. But also, if they won't eat the food, why? Is it too cold? If they're not drinking enough water, can you warm the water? So these are just really, really small little things that we can do for our animals, depending on where you live. And obviously for me in summertime, this is not an issue, but in wintertime, I've got to work differently with my water and my food. And it's just really, it doesn't mean that you have to go and get all these expensive foods. And, some of these expensive foods, even though they have wet and dry, some of them are really, they're not affordable for everybody. And so I also wanted to share that message out there, that if all you can do is get a poorer quality wet food, most vets will agree that that's still better than dry food. Or should I say, most holistic vets will agree that when it comes to a cat, that's still better than dry food, because they do not get enough water in their bodies. With all that being said, I just wanted to share this, because I think, your cat isn't judging you for the food that it's getting. So if that's what you can afford, the fact that you love your cat, you give it a home, you look after it, that means everything. They're not out there judging us. And don't feel pressured by your vets to get them on this food that maybe you can't afford, and maybe it isn't the right thing for them. And as I said before, every animal's an individual. So you really need to tune in as to what your cat wants. Does your cat want the warm water? Does it like the cold food? There could be a myriad of ways that this can work. But ultimately, it's not for the vets or even me to decide what's best for your animal. You know your animal better than anybody. And so it's just through trial and error that I was trying these various things. And I mean, I tried to get them on raw almost as soon as I got them. And I mean, after 4 or 5 days, they were not eating. And that's why I thought, okay, well, now I've got to look at a high quality kibble. And I swear, the next cats I have, if they're from kittens, they're going to be on very different diets to what my guys here are on now. But I'm doing the best that I can with what I've got, and with their personalities and the way they've grown up, and that kind of thing. And I think that it's time for us to just start tuning in, seeing what our animals need, what they want, what's best for them, not allowing anybody to make you feel bad. And if people want to judge you for what you're feeding your animal, but you know that they loved and they looked after and you're doing the best that you can with what you've got, then that's all that matters. It's also just following these little nuggets that your intuition's giving you or your higher self is giving you, or oftentimes the animal themselves are communicating with you. You might think, well, where the hell did that come from? I got that. Could have very well been Jake and Pixie going, our water's too cold. It doesn't really matter whether it's your higher self, whether it's them, whatever it is. What I'm asking you to do is just be aware of what is dropping in for you, what is coming in for you, because the animals a lot of the time are telling us what they need. And in the cases where they don't know what they need, our intuition and our higher guidance is helping us if we've put that out there. And shortly after this whole incident with the vet, and then me seeing that the antibiotics didn't work, and then he was still, his urine, he went almost back, and then I had to put him back on the anti-inflammatories, and then I saw it settle down again. So I was kind of just testing these things as I was going, but drawing my own conclusions from them. And also just then I asked for help. I said, how can I help Jake? And then the next day I found a homeopathic remedy for this. The next day I saw them with their water. The next day was like, oh, maybe the food needs to be warmed as well. So when you ask for guidance, it doesn't just, sometimes it's not given to us if we don't ask for it. But I think the time has come for us just to really start tuning in and seeing what's best for our animal. And, anything that comes with this idiopathic word in it, I go, why is it that the vets are not trying to find out what this is? And all these more holistic vets are going, it's water intake, absolutely, like that's like 80-90% of the problem. But stress also seems to play a role in this condition. And so I think if even in the case of if kibble is all you've got and it's all that you can do right now, if you can get more water into your cat, that absolutely is going to help with many of the things that they suffer from. So I hope this has been helpful. I feel like I was meant to share this. I've been guided to share it. And thank you all so much if you are still here and you are listening, and wishing you a magical rest of your day.